Hello and welcome everybody, I'm Joshino, and today we've got a little bit more of a touch of spicy speculation. Now this time around it's Paladins Global with the flow of spice, and that is in the form of Khan, the next champion coming in Open Beta 69, which I would guess would be announced in maybe a week and a half, so when 2 weeks after the last release last Friday, if we are going back to the normal patch release schedule. Otherwise I'm not entirely sure. Be sure to let me know all of your speculation in the comments section below as I go through everything in this video. As always, the sources are in the description too, although this time it's only one website, so be sure to check that out. You could even read that as I go through my video too. Alongside some of Khan's talents and the way he'll play and the cards, there's also another little tidbit. I was expecting more data mining to come out from the bigger players, like Paladins Poland has been putting out stuff recently, and some people have been posting their own little bits here and there, so I was hoping to put them all together into one big video, but not a lot has come out. So we're just talking about pretty much everything about Khan, but also a little tidbit from hi-rez Juju was that in response to a Reddit post asking about some of the things that were data mined, he said, "I can confirm that we're aiming to release Nightbane and Droxus in Open Beta 69. We'll have more details once we're closer." So if you haven't seen it before, that's the community skin for the Droxus that looks kind of like a Scarecrow / Edgelord incarnate. Can you imagine that one going off with dab emote? Something else funny that's interesting to pick up on, and with the data mining, it's where people go into the files of the patches. It's pretty much every time the PTS comes up because people will be looking at what's coming next and they'll be rushing to look what's hidden that's being worked on. Well, hi-rez Juju says, "I would caution about buying into data mined info too much. Plans can change and many of these have. So always take everything here with a pinch of salt or a pinch of spice, whichever you may wish for." Anywho, moving on to Khan. So I actually did talk about his abilities in the last video, so if you want to watch that, click over, there'll be a card above. There was one thing that I didn't get explicitly though, and that was his main attack, and that is the heavy repeater, and it fires one 200 damage shot every 0.26 seconds. Now this isn't actually insane, it's a bit shy of the 800 damage per second, which was the old Torvald damage. And to reiterate, they have a buff in a battle shout, which heals and gives CC immunity. They've got an actual shield, a bit like Fernando with regeneration, and they've got a grab to charge forwards and grab somebody, and their ultimate is like a chain to pull them towards and throw them while stunned. So they're kind of a mix between some aggression, some sustained fire with the likes of Torvald, Ruckus, base survivability of Torvald, and also some utility of the shield of Fernando. Anyway, let's move on to the talent cards. The first big one is Lian's shield, again coming in with the lore between Lian and Khan being their general, and pretty much giving up everything for Lian and House Ico. What this talent card does is it makes your shield recharge at 50% effectiveness whilst it is raised. What this means in context is, so currently Bulwark, the actual shield itself, will regenerate once the shield has gone down, but instead, this will mean that your shield essentially has a higher health pool, and if the enemy doesn't completely burst it down quickly, the likelihood is that shield is going to be regenerating over time. In my opinion, this is going to work a lot like Fernando's Aegis shield, and in some cases maybe a little bit better because you won't really have to take the shield down if you go around a corner or something and slightly regenerate it. But either way, you're probably going to be switching between taking it down and regenerating it quicker, and then having it still up and still regenerating it at a decent pace. So this could pretty much mean that you have your shield a hell of a lot of the time in the game, and it'll be interesting how Rekka reacts to this, because Rekka's used to completely decimate shields, but in Khan's case, it's regenerating all the time, and it's regenerating whilst it's up. So in some ways, Rekka might be even more important, because you're going to probably have to do more damage to the shield, because if they've got Leon's shield, it essentially has a higher health pool, but also that shield's probably going to come back pretty quickly and can regenerate on its own whilst it's up too. Next up is Firing Line. This is an AoE buff that adds to your battle shout. This is the one that heals allies around you for 800 health over 4 seconds and yourself, and gives yourself CC immunity. Instead, this also gives 20% increased bonus damage. This again is interesting in the way it could be played. So currently Fernando's shield, people don't necessarily always stand behind it unless they're in a very situational choke point. For example, in Overwatch, a lot of people will literally sit behind the Reinhardt, firing behind the Reinhardt shield, because it is actually bigger than the Fernando shield, and the maps are smaller. But it's kind of hard to cover everybody in Paladins unless you're just in like a tight corridor, say on ice mines or something like that, or you're just covering a doorway. Most of the time, the rest of your team will probably be in different positions, but this will actually give an incentive for people to be quite close up to you to get this buff, and also the healing. It could also work well in tandem with healers that aren't necessarily so good at hitting heals further away, so not your Meldambas or your Seras, but if you have a Grok next to you, you could buff each other up in tandem. Same with a Pip, because they might want to get closer up to secure the heals too. That'd be interesting there. The next up is Storm of Bullets. This one is the one that sort of gives you a more mainstay in damage and DPS. And what it does is it makes your weapon fire 40% faster, has 10 more rounds, but deals 25% less damage. Now, effectively, that's not an awful huge buff, and it's only going to go slightly higher than the old Torvald's damage, although it has been slightly tweaked down. I think the important thing here is the 10 more rounds in the magazine, so you don't have to reload as quickly. But again, I don't know whether this is going to trump up the damage enough for you want to pick this up over the other options. We'll just have to see. But it was interesting because I was talking about the heavy repeater working like the heavy repeater in the old Star Wars games. Like in Jedi Knight Outcast, it basically fired out really fast loads of molten metal. And it could work like this here, like a as things just sort of spray out of it. Finally, Vortex Grip. After hitting an enemy with Commander's Grab, this is one where you charge forwards and grab somebody, you may follow it up with a shoulder charge, knocking them back and dealing 400 damage. Now this one adds a bit more speculation. So Commander's Grab on its own surges you forwards, so you charge forwards, you grab them, stun them, and throw the first enemy you come into contact with, which deals 800 damage of its own. Now, how exactly will this work? Will it be that you throw them up in the air, and at that point you'll be able to charge again? So then you'll be able to charge into them with your shoulder whilst they're in midair, knocking them back for another 400 damage, maybe even further. Is it going to be like a wombo combo? Or is it that you can use it to charge into somebody else, who essentially get two charges? One of them works more like Ash's shoulder bash rather than the grab. So say you grab one person, stun them, throw them, and then you point somewhere else and go into another enemy. I'm not sure in these two in which how this is going to actually work. Both sound pretty good. One in increased damage and extra knockback, and the other in pretty big utility. I think the second one would be the more overpowered one and might actually make this very, very likely to be picked up by players. What do you think? Be sure to let me know in the comment section below anyway. Anyway, I'm going to quickly go through the cards and talk about the context to some of the talent cards. So first of all, we've got Plate Mail, especially just giving you 150 health at each level. Next up is Bloodthirst. This gives you 4% lifesteal at each level, up 20%. So if you are building that sustained fire build, sometimes a Ruckus will pick up lifesteal and could work out. Excessive Force, it increases your clip size by 2 at each level, up to the 10. So again, this could work out well with the Storm of Bullets talent card. Next up is Eliminations, reduce your active cooldowns by 8% at each level. Now this one is quite a big one, as because you have quite a rapid firing weapon, and like champions like this, champions do AoE damage or they can spray, it's much easier to get eliminations because you can spread your damage across and you're touching a lot of enemies with your damage to get those eliminations. So almost 50% cooldown reduction there from just this card if you're getting eliminations. I think that could be a pickup. Next up, Vigorous Defense. So you heal an extra 10 health per second at each level, so up to 50 health per second, whilst your Bulwark is up. That one is interesting because it seems that the shield doesn't have a lifespan like other shields. You put it up and put it down and it regenerates in between, so you could have it up infinitely. So the healing is low, but it's constant, I guess you could say. Hope Guard receives 6% at each level, increased healing whilst your Bulwark is up. Again, an interesting option there because you'll go out of combat and you also probably lose your Cauterize whilst you have that shield up, so that could make healing pretty much instantaneous to get into the fight after that. Next up is increase the recharge rate of your Bulwark by 4% each level up to 20%. Especially with the passive healing of your shield, it could make that shield very big. Finally, Shield Wall, increase the health of your Bulwark by 2% each level up to 10%. Again, you might combo that off with that talent card. Close and Personal. So you gain 6% damage reduction at each level for 3 seconds when hitting an enemy with Commander's Grab. So we don't know the exact cooldown of Commander's Grab, so it'll be interesting to see whether this will be worthwhile, because it's a sizable damage reduction there, and also the time is relatively long for 3 seconds. Next up is activating Commander's Grab, generates 4 ammo at each level. Again, depends on the Commander's Grab cooldown. Chokehold, activating Commander's Grab heals you for 80 at each level. I'm not entirely sure on that one, seeing as there's some other healing options in his deck already, and Battle Shout itself does heal you quite a bit. Finally, reduce the cooldown of Commander's Grab by 0.5 seconds at each level. This could be the kicker, and something that you might combo together with all of these, and the talent card for the Commander's Grab. Okay, the final set of cards is Hold the Line. Heal yourself for an additional 860 at each level when activating Battle Shout. That one I think could be picked up. Next up, Never Surrender. Reduce the cooldown of Battle Shout by 1 second at each level, up to 5 seconds, which would suggest, compared to Commander's Grab, that it probably has a higher cooldown, or a pretty high cooldown, maybe 14 seconds or something along those lines. Next up is Activating Battle Shout generates 4 ammo at each level, up to 20 ammo. Again, perhaps this would work better on the Commander's Grab. Just depends really, if this one has a much bigger cooldown. And finally, Activating Battle Shout grants 8% movement speed at each level for 3 seconds. So perhaps that could be a pickup. All in all, Khan sounds like he has a pretty devastating kit coming up. I am curious whether he will be maybe a tad overpowered when he comes out, just because he has so much utility in his shield in that it regenerates whilst inactive. He does have that CC immunity on his battle cry, and it also heals allies around you. And finally, he has some CC to sort of challenge Makoa, and also even make Torvald's cheeks a little bit rosy and a bit jealous. I think it might be a bit of an emoji situation where maybe they have too much going for them, but I could be wrong here. I mean, the damage isn't bad, but everything sounds pretty good so far. Anyway, be sure to let me know all of your thoughts in the comment section below and all of your speculation for Khan. Again, I think it'll be released in about 2 weeks. And here's hoping that hi-rez are back on track after all of the hoo-ha with OB64 and repealing all of that, and Cards Unbound and all that stuff. Anyway, thank you all very much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button, subscribe for more of my content, and hit that bell icon to become part of the notification squad. Anyway, see you all next time. Thanks for watching. Joshino.